you being so transparent and sharing how, working out and fitness started you on your healing journey. I have to ask, can you take me back to that time when you first started working out? What was going on in your life, and how did you discover fitness as being the conduit? Some people turn to prescriptions, right? Or to other vices, as I even just mentioned with you now. How did that evolution take place?
Well, like I found fitness literally reading a book
Hmm.
on how to grieve a breakup and
Hmm.
how to grieve. And then I understood after reading that book, like, oh, I'm grieving in different ways. I'm grieving the fact that I didn't go in the direction that I wanted to go to college. I'm grieving because I decided to emancipate and I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like I was at that moment where, as a young person, and you make, I was maybe like 22, 23, and you make choices where you find yourself asking yourself, like, wait a second, this is not what I wanted for my life, and the only one I have to blame is myself. So I found fitness. I did a lot of things, to be honest, and I come from, a family that is in the medical field and in the military. So I saw the ins and outs of my mom not being the healthiest. At the time, I was dealing with body dysmorphic disorder. I was depressed. I didn't know what to do at that time. I saw myself, I'm like, I'm rebelling towards my parents. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that this is not what I want to do and this is not me,
Yeah.
right? I found myself in, that my decisions had put me in a position where I didn't want to be.
Hmm.
And I started, I'm an avid reader. I started reading on depression and I tried pretty much everything. I tried hypnosis, that was really, really good for me, cognitive therapy, talk therapy, all kinds of therapies, exposure therapy. And on the book, and I have to find this book, but on the book, it said something about moving your body. And at that time, I had one of my best friends that was a personal trainer and that, was always like trying to push me to move and whatever.
Yeah.
And I just saw an interest in it. Let me just try this. And at the time, it was just like cardio, like
Hmm.
doing what I can just to move my body. And I started, feeling better. And it wasn't up until I saw myself like, wait a second, I'm like disintegrating here. And that was me coming out of being really, I mean, my body was literally destroying itself.
Hmm.
Like depression can look in different ways. The way that it presents in my body is with absolutely like losing interest in even eating, right?
Hmm.
So I started moving and one thing leads to another. And I started, I already have this personality. I was raised by brothers. So I saw myself going into like weightlifting. And at that time, again, I had no strength and I just became obsessed with the idea of becoming stronger. And in the beginning, it was for my mental health, but then it translated into, oh my God, look at all these females. And I was just like hitting the books and learning about bodybuilding and learning about myself and learning. I mean, I became obsessed with something else, which is something that you look at when you're doing behavioral change. When you're trying to change somebody's habits, you're giving them one habit and giving them another in
Hmm.
substitution. And then it becomes something that you start to do. So I became infatuated with the way that I was feeling, infatuated with the little wins that I was getting. And then really obsessed with the idea like, wait a second, all these people can do these things. Why can't I? And
Hmm.
that's like my thing. Everybody knows like, oh, if I can do something, I'm going to figure it out and I'm just going to be obsessed until I get it. So failure, like all the times that I failed became associations with the wins that I was doing. And even now, that's what I try to teach.
Mhm.
It's like I break things down in a sustainable path, but all the experience and all the people that I've touched throughout like 11 years, it put them into patterns,
Yeah.
right? So all these patterns, like we think that we're so different, but we're not. So you break down patterns in it's like you're taking one person to walk one step at a time. And then they start becoming more and more confident in what they're doing until all these habits that you used to have, now they're replaced with all these new habits where you become obsessed with a healthy, you build healthy obsessions. We
Yes.
call it in the field, like building healthy obsessions. So that's what pretty much happened. Just to give you, the last side of the story,
Mhm.
fitness truly was my outlet to reframe my brain, or more rewire my brain. So hormonally, there was things that were happening.
Mhm.
And later on in the years, I understood, like, wait a second, like everything that I was doing, as I'm breaking it down, where like all these steps that people have to do in therapists, they put you in these steps. And I figure it out on my own. And that catapulted my career because I penetrated the space when most individuals that are apt in movement, like now you see coaches coming in like, oh, you were a gymnast and now you became a PT and now you're doing all these tricks and all these things that people see. But back then, I took people through a story, and people fell in love, not with the person, not with the looks, not with, I penetrated the space with all these tattoos back in the day when they were not acceptable. And my parents were like, what are you doing? Nobody's going to listen. And literally, I penetrated that space, not based on the looks, not based on the fact that, oh, look at some girl from Brooklyn and like she's Afro Latina and she has, she's beating the odds. Like, no, I took people through a journey that was personal to me. And at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I
Mhm.
was just literally just connecting with others. And it was an exercise that I did because of that book. It put me in positions that now I was seeking the energy and connecting. This is what we'll call community now.
Mhm.
And it is one of the pillars of my brand, that we're going to bring community to the people that have no support, right? So when you get to touch another person that has gone through whatever it is that you are experiencing right now, there's a relatability to it. And you feel more comfortable. You feel like this is a safe space. That person has gone through the same things that I'm going through. And that's been pretty much like my career, being
Mhm.
transparent and taking people through a journey that is going to help them understand like what we do the 23 hours that we're outside of the gym,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Most people on the outside and on the surface, they think I just touch on that 1 hour that you have to commit. But once you come into my brand, you understand that this is more about the 23 hours that you're out of the gym. So
No,
that's pretty much what became my life. My life became everything that had to do with health and wellness, because I was beating the odds. I said, well, what happened to my brother can happen to me. He was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma, which derailed my path with what I wanted to do for school. In 3 years, in my junior year of college, I dropped out. That's when I experienced, I dropped out and I went in through my deep depression, figuring out what I wanted to do. And then just fitness fell on my lap.
Mhm. Mhm. No, I was gonna say, you touched on it beautifully. Your transparency and vulnerability. There's strength in vulnerability, and there's strength in, I don't even wanna call it failures, but, sometimes re-looking at how, or re-examining how we look at what we may consider failures. I look at that time from when I just mentioned to you, when I ran into that 2017 to 2020, not even so much as a failure for me, even though it was a low point. I learned a lot,
Mhm.
and I know that I can bounce back, and it made me develop a better relationship with my mental health. So I don't
Mhm.
want to call them failures. I just want to say those learning moments that we will get
Mhm.
through, and that's one of the reasons why I also connected with you, because you're right. Yeah, we're in the gym for an hour, right? I used to run from marathons, like a couple of hours, but outside we sit in our heads and with ourselves so much. And I really appreciate that you are that 360 experience and
Yeah.
wellness and conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it comes down to, how things are set up here in America, how we
Mhm.
are in this like hamster wheel. We basically are wearing our stressors.
Yeah.
And this, like the culture that I've experienced here is that we're masking, like we're giving people coping mechanisms that are not the healthiest. So
Mhm.
you see individuals that, let's say, drugs or food or sex or even engaging in their own self-detriment.
Yeah.
There's people that do not have the right support systems. They haven't been taught how to get out of a situation, or even the people that are rooting for them, like, hey, okay, well, again, like that's a hiccup. Keep
Mhm.
going. I was lucky enough to be born in not to be I was lucky enough to be born into a family that didn't have resources. They made the resources. So both of my parents are pretty much the ones that got away and broke their generational curses. So I had already examples of, oh, you fail, you go and do this. And both of my mom is a nurse, my dad is not a college graduate, but both of them were entrepreneurs, and both of them were really smart, like street smart. And
Mhm.
even when I talk
Mhm.
to them, like they're very intelligent innately in a lot of things that they do and say. And also, on the other hand, they were, you know, they didn't have the tools that we have right now. So they made the same mistakes that we're making now, right? That we want to maybe blame them for what they did. But again, you have to look back and say, like, what resources they had, right? So I was lucky enough to at least have experienced some sort of like a model system that I was able to like grasp on once I saw myself in these difficult situations. But people, there's a lot of people that are not as lucky, I
Mhm.
would say.
Absolutely. From the time in which you started your journey in fitness to the time in which you decided to, I'm going to start to share this with others. About what was that time span like? Like about how long was that? Because I often tell people things don't happen overnight, right? Especially in this age of social media, we often feel that overnight, it's an overnight success type of thing. What was that time frame like for you, where you just decided to, okay, I'm going to start sharing this message with others?
I mean, I started sharing my message from the moment I opened that account.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, not from the moment I opened my account, because I was still dealing with depression in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at my account, it was just like pictures of myself and cigarettes,
Got you.
right?
Yeah.
And as I started moving, that's when I started my journey. And back then I was like skin and bones.
Mhm, mhm,
Something about like obsession of being skinny. It was like great.
mhm.
And I just started literally like sharing what you see now that people are doing, writing this long captions and whatnot. I was doing that before they were doing it.
Right.
Right. So people were posting their pictures and using the filters. I was writing you a story.
Mhm.
Now people don't read. Now they want the stuff in like video, and they
Right.
want you to talk and all of that. But I was already doing that. Like a picture to me was not strategic, but it said 1,000 words without me saying anything. So I'm known for like
Mhm.
posting the deep stuff, the
Yeah.
stuff like it's gonna get you right here, right?
Mhm.
So I would say like maybe after a year of me like building that, I started to see like a community.
Mhm.
And back then, it was a community of people that I didn't know. People remember the popular page and all of that. And then people just started reaching out to me, like celebrities and whatnot, and publications, because I was pretty much like the only one in the space doing it for Afro Latinos, or just,
Mhm.
if I don't open my mouth, you would think I'm just Black, right? Which
Mhm.
I am. I just happen to be born in the Caribbean and speak Spanish, right? So I identify myself as a Black woman. So I would say like after a year, and it wasn't up until I got it certified and did all that, that I started like people just started requesting me and started asking for advice. And then I'm very self-righteous in all the things that I do. So I said to myself, like, wait a second, I'm onto something here. I really like connecting with people. I really love humans. I love the way they think, why they think. I love culture. I love the world. I love differences in opinions and cultures and belief systems, like all of it. Like I want it all, because I'm trying to understand myself. And in understanding others, I understand myself a little bit better, right?
Right.
So I would say a year, and then like 2 years later, I started to do like PT, where I was doing my own marketing and like grabbing people that were in my area
Mhm.
and doing things outside in the park. So it started with me going to like different oh my God, what was the gym? Oh my God, Planet Fitness.
Oh, uh-huh.
And at the time, we used to have, it was like $20 and you can bring a friend, but I would hop on and go to Brooklyn and then train someone, like we were training together, and then hop onto the next station until they caught up to that. And then I started doing it in parks up until I had hundreds of people show up one time at Central Park, and they're like, you need a permit for this. And then
Oh.
I'm like, oh my God. So now that same friend that was a boyfriend at the time got me into the studio where I was doing like one-on-one sessions. And it was in Central Park, not Central Park, in Midtown.
Okay.
And I started closer like to 34th Street, and I started to do like one-on-one sessions, and one thing led to another, and now we're here.
Um,
A lot of things led to being here. But
um, social media is known though for being not necessarily always the healthiest place. How do you create boundaries for yourself in terms of keeping your own mental health and wellness in check and social media while still being vulnerable and transparent with your audience?
well, Dana, I think that I constantly get asked that question, like social
Mhm.
media can be, a negative place. I feel like you start seeing life through the lens in which your head is at. So
Fair.
if you
Fair.
choose to see light, you would engage with light.
Hmm.
If you are dealing with something, let's say, like if you're an insecure human and you haven't learned how to self love, and the meaning of self love now, see, like it seems like people are touching it under surface, but like self love to me means a lot of things. When
Hmm.
I can tell you, being that I was on the other extreme of health, I didn't love myself because I was doing exactly what was hurting my body and hurting my brain. For example, drink. I used to drink. There's a reason why I don't drink now, because it's a depressant.
Hmm.
So I nurture my body, the person that you see right now, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect.
No, no, no. I didn't see that.
Yesterday I had things that I was not supposed to have. My body hates me, right? And now I'm like, oh, and this is why I don't do that,
Right.
right?
Reminder.
So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
person that you see now, even the things that I look on social media, it's different
Hmm.
because I'm seeking a certain kind of energy. So about like 2 weeks ago, I decided, maybe my relationship with God is not as close as I want it to be. Maybe instead of watching the pastor that I really like because he's highly intelligent, A.R. Bernard, he's in New York. Maybe I need to start congregating and going to church and being a little bit more intentional in the things that I'm looking at and seeing, and the music and everything else in between. So
Hmm.
now I am doing things intentional,
Hmm.
where I'm waking up, the first thing that I do is open my Bible. I'm not listening to certain things. I'm catching myself if I say a word that may be derogatory to me or to the things that I'm doing. So I'm being intentional. So
Yeah.
when we say these things about social media, I think there's a lot of room to say, well, how is our life and how are we seeing life? Through which lens?
Hmm.
So it can be extremely negative, but it can be an amazing space where you can find and draw inspiration and motivation. So if you are empty, you're going to find empty things that continue to exacerbate why you're feeling so bad about yourself. So 2024, even for my brand, is going to be very different, because now, like, I've done fitness has been like, this is what I do. I can do it with my eyes closed. I can teach it with my eyes closed.
Hmm.
I'm stepping into another realm of growth for myself, where now I'm interested in life coaching. What do you do the 23 hours that we're not together? And where are the hiccups in your life? Let's look back and let's construct a different perspective in these different protocols that you're going to follow, so that you can have a holistic approach to your life
Hmm.
based, on what I have done. So to me, like, the boundaries, I create boundaries, and I create boundaries within myself, that if I already said I'm not going to do this, no matter what I am going to stick to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by sticking to that, it's like you get these different wins, right? When you say like no to alcohol, alcohol is a very, it's an easy route for you to get something instant, right? But then what's after that?
Right.
If you're not able to learn how to neutralize your emotions and what you're feeling, like that natural anxiety or sadness and emotions by yourself, because humans have an ability to do that, whether it's with meditation, with breath work, with a walk, with exercise, and you're able to replace those things, then you're just going to gravitate, to that. So the same little wins that I get when I say like, no, I'm going to respect my schedule. Saturdays and Sundays, I'm not going to work, and I'm going to respect that. No matter the urge that I feel like, wait a second, I'm not moving, I'm not progressing. I'm like, what am I doing? You're resting because you need to get ready for Monday.
Right.
Right? And I need to be okay. That's something that I'm working on right now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Being okay with being still, because I'm never still. So boundaries, I create those boundaries and I respect them. And I take note when I don't respect them, what is the consequence of that? It's the same thing that I've adopted with food or with certain addictions that we all have.
Yeah. That's something I wish I'd have learned younger. At 41 now, I'm like, damn, I wish in my 20s I was better at boundaries. I just wish I was better, because now I can say no and I don't even feel the need to justify it. No, can't do that. Why? I don't really feel like I need to answer that.
And you get stronger. Like that anxiety that you feel, like by saying no, or by, let's say, like I have clients that emotionally eat.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime, like I replace it with something. Like when you grab the Ben and Jerry's, I want you to grab a piece of fruit, and I want you to take note of that every single time. By the time that you have these urges, yet you have associated, wait a second, there is something that I'm doing that is going to counteract this bad thing, or not even bad, this thing that is not good for me at the moment, right? And like little by little, you just like learn, right?
And then it becomes you're the new habit, like you were saying a little bit earlier.
Yeah. So for the reader or their listener, it's not, it's about looking at life through the lens of what you want to experience. So start, like, if something causes you anxiety, it's not that you're going to push them out, because that's what everybody's doing. Like you're suppressing that. You're creating filters for your kids. Like obviously, like there's filters that you have to have, right? But you're suppressing all these emotions. Like, no, that's not what I do with my daughter. You're angry? Go through it. Let's go. You need a hug? You need to talk about it? Let's talk about it, right? Let's not suppress it. So instead, why is this making me feel insecure? Is it making you feel insecure because you're looking at your body and now you're hating what you're seeing? Then let's not be in denial. Let's not be in denial, and let's do something about it. Because I don't want to hear you another year saying, but I hate myself. But you are causing this to yourself. So what do we need to do? Stop being in denial and then start creating change.
Once you started to go viral, do you remember the moment you realized you were going viral?
Yes.
And what was that moment like?
Picture of my stomach. It was a picture of my stomach, and I was like, this is what's going viral. And it went viral because it was like shredded stomach with no waist. And I believe some celebrities, I think it was like Portia from the TV show.
From Housewives?
Yeah, from Housewives. She was posting me. Lala Anthony was posting me, and all these women like, I want that. And I was like, why do people want this? And every single day I was just hitting the popular page. And picture.
And so when you recognize that, and of course Hollywood started to come, what was that like for you in your life? Because sometimes, I'm not going to say sometimes, I started Life After the Hashtag to show kind of what happens after people start to go viral, and how it's, life has evolved, it's changed, it may or may not have affected them in a certain way. So tell me a little bit about that after you went viral, and what that was like for you and for your brand and business.
I think it was a moment, and we hear this a lot now, like imposter syndrome, and there was sort of like this thing in the back of my head, like, oh, you got to level up. Like that was that moment when I knew it's like, you can't be misinforming people. These are questions that people are asking you about how you're getting to these results, and you have to know what you're talking about. So there was like a constant pressure, even today, constant pressure to continue to evolve in my field, because then if you're not going with science and the changes that are happening, then you become a dinosaur. And now you're contributing to like the misinformation. So that's always in the back of my head, which is why like there's never a point in which I'm complacent with what I'm doing. I get bored. After I learn something, I'm like, okay, what's next? What's next to learn? Or what do I need to do to keep myself upgrading? Whether it's like knowledge or information, or maybe it's a new way. There's always that. If not, you're just become a dinosaur, right?
Do you feel like you're successful?
Yes. And I'm successful because I'm doing something that brings me joy, even in the moments of pressure, because that joy became a business. And any entrepreneur can tell you, especially those who are self-funded. And it actually, let me backtrack this, because if I owe money to another person, maybe I have more stress because it's not my money. If I fail, like, this is my boat. We're going to sink and I'm going to sink with it. Right. But if I'm sinking somebody else's boat, I don't want to be in that position. But I think like every entrepreneur goes to like these same like stressors, right?
As a freelancer myself, it's hard for me sometimes to say, I did accomplish that, because you are constantly thinking, you're constantly hustling, or what's the next client? What's the next job? What do I keep in the pipeline? That sort of thing. And I think it's important to give ourselves pats on the back, accomplish certain things. And it's okay to say, yes, I did. Yeah, I did that. It is good.
You're working for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you're your own boss. There's, people that
also my worst critics
are built different.
Absolutely. 100%.
And like you lead, that means like you are the leader of your life, your hours. And now you have to determine how you're going to live those 24 hours. And if you're doing it with others, you have to convince them that what you're doing is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, we're headed in a good direction. You better stick around because we're going to make it. Right. And what is that? So I only have individuals that work with me, not for me. We work together. And we have this crazy belief that whatever we're doing, we're going to innovate and we're going to keep tracking. You're not going elsewhere because you don't think this ship is sinking. So I think, there's a lot of power in working for yourself and being that person. And you have to give yourself grace, because you're competing with like people that have had generational wealth.
Yes.
And that's what you're pretty much trying to create for yourself and your family and your legacy, right? Is that generational wealth. Hopefully Indy can take what I've done and just take it further. Hopefully, whatever she feels like doing.
She's absolutely beautiful, by the way.
Oh, thank you. She's big now. She's so big.
I feel like I feel like I know you because of social media, but I feel like she's taller than me now. I'm gonna be honest.
It's like right here, the bottom of my breast. Like she's gonna be a big girl. Like she's gonna be like maybe 5'10", 5'11". Yeah. So we'll see how they're gonna treat her, because she's just bigger than everyone.
What do you teach her about self-love and self-care? I know it's a young age, but are you kind of introducing certain things now?
Yes. Indira, I respect her. I'm not racing. Like, I think I mentioned this in the beginning. Like, we can look back and blame our parents. I don't believe trauma exists, right? Because when you become a parent, you're going to understand a lot of things. Nobody gave you a manual as a parent to like do this thing whatsoever. So you have to give your parents grace. And then you have to start relating. Like if you're, there's a book, I'm going to recommend it to you. The Courage of Being Disliked.
Ooh.
It's based on this other philosophy or school of thought in psychology. And the book talks about like there's no trauma, and he breaks it down for you. So I think what I teach Indy respect. I teach her emotional intelligence. Those are two very important things. I teach her how to deal with her emotions, because as a woman, she's going to be highly emotional. And as a human, even though like men don't want to maybe sometimes not speak on it, like we're highly emotional.
Yes.
How we deal with those emotions are important. I led, for example, anger and sadness and frustration. I turned that around and I put it here in the gym, right? Best workouts when I'm experiencing those three things.
Yeah.
Best meetings when I'm frustrated and I'm like, oh, watch me being creative, right? So I teach her about these things, but I also teach her about, I had this moment that was really hard in the beginning when I started co-parenting and like not having her full time or like having to leave for work. And I had all this mom guilt. So I started like, being sappy with other moms, like, yes, I agree. And I'm like, wait a second. My mom was a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't look at my mom and say, you left me. I looked at my mom and I said, if my mom did this, I can do this too. So my mom modeled this independent trait that she always possessed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was something else. That lady was something. And I started to feel all these guilt. And then I turned that around and I said, what do I want to teach my daughter? My daughter, like I made the decision of divorcing because I looked at my daughter and I said to her, this is not who she's going to remember. She's not going to remember a woman that is sad. This is not what I want to model to her, to being this is not a family dynamic. This is not how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I want my daughter to grow up with the positive, and I'm not going to protect her from the negatives. She's going to learn because this is another pathway for her to learn what is good, what's not good, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, right? Mm-hmm. So I model self-worth by not allowing people to be in my home that don't deserve it. I model independence because I'm okay. And I have these talks with her like, hey, mommy has to work. She's doing this for X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Okay. So she understands when I go to work. She understands like even when we are in the room, I go, are you a mother?
No, I'm not. Mm-mm.
Right. So, or maybe when you were a kid and like your parents were like at the top of their stress and they're like, and they exploded. Even when we are together in the house, I said like, hey, baby, mommy needs her time. Like my head right now is full of information. My head feels like really like at a place right now. I need my time. Mm-hmm. Can you go to your room and can you go and find something to do? Go and do something creative. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And now we give ourselves our time, right? So I treat Indy as the adult that she will be, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, allowing her to be a kid, right?
Absolutely.
As well. So she still jumps on the couch, which is like, this couch is not leaving until she's As women, like we try to do it all. Like if you're not the woman that doesn't understand how to ask for help, you have to look at a limit. Mm-hmm. You are going to blow up on your kids if you don't know how they're developing. Mm-hmm. Because kids, like the way that they develop up until the age that they're 12 is gnarly. Yeah. So me having that background and that knowledge, like, oh, I have to tell her 1,000 times because this is how her brain is developing right now. It is not her fault. Right. She's asking me these things because of her brain development, right? Mm-hmm. Also, we talked about boundaries. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows this about me. And I had to be very clear with these boundaries. I wake up every single day at 5:30. My days are going to end when I pick up my daughter from school. I'm not missing anything. I'm present with my kid. If you don't get me from the hours of 5:30 to 3:30, that's my 8 hours. And that's a non-negotiable. And my phone goes like this the entire time. Indy doesn't have a nanny. I have an assistant that helps me, like, oh, you saw this guy coming in, go and set up, go and clean the gym so that the space is clean and whatever. But I take on a full role with Indy. That means that when Indy is here, I'm not able to take on so much. So no, girlfriend, I cannot go to this dinner. No, fulano, I cannot do X, Y, and Z because I'm spending time with my daughter. Yeah. I understand that there's environmental stressors and emotional stressors that are going to impact my relationship and even the patient's cubby that I have, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm at a 10 already, I know that I cannot be at a 10 when I have my daughter. Right. Because she's going to be the one that takes it. Yeah. And I'm not going to do that to her. Right. So I think understanding, and I speak on this a lot, we're being sold this idea that we can do it all. Like, for example, you look at Kylie Jenner, or I'm just mentioning names, like any celebrity. And let's say you don't know that she has 10 nannies, a makeup artist, this, that. That's how you're comparing, who you're comparing yourself to.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lie. Whether you want to fantasize about having that life or whatever, that is not your life. And mind you, they're not even showing you the negative effects of having all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That they have no privacy, that there's no room to breathe. They're presenting the materialistic side of things, that everything looks perfect, but behind the scenes, they have no normalcy and no balance, and they crave what you have.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the people that have it all, and they're craving something that the people that don't have those material things already possess. So how do we bridge the gap and we understand that, hey, you're going to have certain things great in certain departments, and some other things are going to be in the back burner for a little bit up until this is okay, and then you can go back to this. All right. But life, I say it all the time, when people say, I just want to be happy, throughout the entire day, you go through crazy emotions every single day. Happiness is a state of mind that you have to choose to put yourself in the midst of like having human experience, which is really hard to live in this world with everything else that we know.
Right. So, which goes back to what you were saying earlier. That's why the boundaries are so important. That's why the boundaries are absolutely so important. I want to lighten things up a little bit. I want to, as you can see, I have a long ponytail here. I want to ask you about your big chop. When you cut all of your hair.
Well, the big chop, I've done it twice, to be quite honest. And I really thought I was going to be like power of the people and like wear my fro. But the crazy reality is like, yo, this is hard. Okay.
Oh, I tried to grow hair back. A couple months ago. I was like, you hair people? I can't.
You lied to me.
I can't.
It's like, this is day 13 and it looks great. Lies. Y'all are liars.
Y'all are straight.
Like, you don't move. This is how you sleep? And you don't move? Like, come on,
like
get out of here. So I stopped putting chemicals in my hair like eight years ago. So like I'm going back to straightening my hair. As you can see, like I actually have an appointment tomorrow to do like a keratin that's like organic keratin. Like I'm done. I'm gonna rock my hair because it's what I know. I've been doing my hair like from a very young age, like the Dominican hairstyle, and it works for me. Like I was looking crazy. I put some gel and now it's back in a ponytail. Like, hello, right? So, but the big shop represented a lot of things. You know, I wanted my daughter to look at me and like go through the process, and like she understands like, oh, mommy's doing this not because she doesn't like her hair, but because this is easier. And one day, once like you get there, you'll decide whatever it is that you want to do to your hair, but love yourself regardless. So she's seen me love myself in many different ways. And I love my curls, and the curls are great and they look really nice. But man, it's a lot of work. And I have a lot of things that I have to accomplish, and my hair is not, I'm not.
I got about an inch long, and you know, working out and things like that. I said, this is a lot. And then there are like 9 million products on the shelves now. I bleached it like 2 days ago. I'm ready to grab my clippers. I was like, this feels like too much work right now. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what? This department of my hair is just, I'm not going to focus on it. Like, I'm going to make my life easy because there's so many other things that are just hard, and the hair is hard on top of like having to manage her hair.
right. Get her ready.
Like she can't go out looking crazy. I much rather go out looking crazy, but she can't.
No, I totally understand that. Okay, I've always wanted to ask. This is going to sound so superficial, but I have to ask. Do you have thoughts on people who wear full makeup in the gym?
You know, I used to. Wow, the growth that has happened. I used to be so judgmental. Because I'm very self-righteous. And it wasn't up until I started this business that I understood like, oh my God, what was I doing? Like, girl, you want to wear makeup? I used to wear makeup in the gym. I don't wear makeup now because I've understood like go through the ugly process so you can go through the pretty process. Right. To have a lot of acne and whatever, and like changing my lifestyle, change those things. So I understand like there's people that wear makeup because they make them, you know, they make themselves feel better. And if that makes you feel better, go for it. Wear like you're not disturbing me.
Right.
Like, do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've come to the understanding, and even with my friends, unless you ask me for advice, I'm just listening, because at the end of the day, you already have the answers within you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't ask me for advice, because I don't want to be that person, like, to give you my advice based on my own actions, based on my experiences, and then you go and do that, and then who is
Right.
there to blame? You already know, and you have the answers deep within.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be cognizant of that and be confident in taking those actions, and then have your support systems in there. Like, hey, if I fall, just letting you know what I'm about to do. But if I fall, I know that I have these
Right.
people to, like, help me, because you should have individuals that are there to support you, not to do the wrong things. Like,
Right.
you know, like the morally incorrect things
No,
that
yeah.
universally, you know, that they're wrong, but they're here for people to support you and say, like, hey, it's okay. You went for it. It didn't transpire to be whatever it is that you thought. It's cool. We got you.
Yeah, we got
Get
you.
you back on your feet.
We'll help you figure this out. Important. What's on your gym playlist?
Everything. So I listen to it's everything from, like, one of my favorite genres of music has to be R&B.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of R&B in there. There's some Sir, there's some Masego, there's some Sango. Then we're going to the Little Ratchet, some Rick Ross. There's some Drake in there. There's some old school, you know, like Usher and Yin Yang Twins, and you go into like Britney, and there's some like pop rock, some Fall Out Boys, and Evanescence, and
So it's a little bit of everything. Just
there's Bollywood music, there's music from my country. I mean, I'm very, like I said, I'm the person, maybe this is sagging me, but I listen to everything. I can sit down with anyone and hear you out. I'm just here to learn.
2024, new things for your brand. Is there anything that you would like to share or mention?
Well, I went from MassyArias.com to Mas Vida, more life. So this is what's on the agenda for next year. We are optimizing Mas Vida, providing people with just not training programs, providing them with a 360 approach to holistic health. Like, that's the mission of the brand, like to provide a holistic and full life for everyone, right? And that's the main focus, to continue to grow as well. TruSupplements, which is like every year is just growing. I knew consumers were going to get smart about what they were putting in their bodies. So I am known for doing things my way, and I don't want to be a cookie cutting version of anyone. I want the space of Mas Vida to be about community and to provide people with the tools to fly on their own. We're giving you the truth. We're optimizing your life, and all our information is backed up by science, because we have the brains. It's not only the personalities that can sell you something,
Right.
also the science and the brains behind it. So that's what's next.
Massy, I just want to say thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Thank you,
For
Dana.
your energy and for your transparency. I'm now going to go to the gym.
Yay.
I could be better. But you truly are an inspiration to so many in levels and ways in which I'm not even sure you realize on the day to day. And I just want to genuinely say thank you.
Thank you, Dana. And